So I think that AI is a power tool. To use an analogy that is it's a woodworking analogy, right? You can still create handcrafted carvings out of wood, or I can use power tools. I can put the design into a CAD system and then dump that out to a CNC machine that will perfectly carve this design out into a piece of wood, and I'll actually get a more uniform and perfect piece. And some will argue that the handcrafted one, with its small flaws, is more valuable because of those imperfections. It's proof that it was handcrafted and not machined. And there's some intrinsic value to that. Welcome to the Forward Slash, where we lean into the future of IT. I'm your host, Aaron Chesny, with my somewhat attractive co-host, James Carman. We'll be doing a point and counterpoint today, so I may be a little less friendly
Should we
to
go
my
full
co-host
like Jane
today.
Curtin, Dan Aykroyd here, or
I don't know if we want to go
we might
to
have
the
to change
adult
our
rating
our, our rating on our
for the
podcast. Yeah,
podcast.
that probably wouldn't be good. I was wondering. I'm like, you usually introduce me as your beautiful co-host, and I was like, am I having a bad day or what? Like, is it?
No, I'm setting up for us to be in debate mode. So today our guest is us again. We're going to be talking about artificial intelligence and what that means for the IT industry, and giving some background on what is AI. We'll start with a formal definition. So IBM defines AI as artificial intelligence, or AI is technology that enables computers and machines to simulate human intelligence and problem solving capabilities. So, breaking that down is, we're trying to get computers to
Hmm.
think more like humans and be able to learn. So,
Well,
what's your take on
nobody
all
ever
that,
got
James?
fired for buying IBM, so I'll buy that definition. I'll take that. I think the whole Turing test has been around for a long time. That that was the definition of if you can have you actually created artificial intelligence, is that if you can pass the Turing test. And the Turing test is, I think it's like kind of a thought experiment, if you will, right? So if you were setting someone down across from an artificially intelligent system, and there's like a curtain between you and that system, and you're interacting with it and speaking back and forth and communicating with it, would you know that it's a computer? If you wouldn't know, then you pass the Turing test.
Well, and that leads into the interesting issue of, you know, using AI to create works. I know, like, it's been used, there's been a lot of talk in, like, the education circles of, um, you know, AI generated writings and things like that, um, and being able to detect whether an AI wrote it or a student wrote it, right?
Yeah, that's kind of important in our old line of work, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, and I have a couple teenage boys that are kind of living through this right now, especially with them getting ready to fill out like college applications, and which have to be accompanied by an essay, right? And a lot of them are like, well, I'm just going to let AI do it. You know,
wow. Yeah, I think I don't know. I'm kind of I'm torn here. So when it comes to education, there is a part of me that's like, that these teachers have got to be, they got to be having a rough time right now, because we probably have a hard enough time already getting kids to focus and put down the machines and the devices, and critically think for themselves. And now when you can have a very, very convincing piece of work that you've generated with AI that you can turn in for a homework assignment. I do think we can't like shy away from AI because it will be a part of their job. Just like everybody when we were kids, right? They'd be like, "Oh, you're not going to have a calculator with you everywhere you go. You need to learn how to, add things up." Well, actually, we do have a calculator with us everywhere we go now, but we are going to have AI with us everywhere we go in the future. So it is going to be part of our lives. But I think you have to kind of like figure out a way to, okay, yes, we're going to learn about AI and we're going to learn how to use it. But we also have to learn the critical thinking and how do you actually solve problems? Because those muscles have to be, and I know it's not muscle, but they
Well,
have
and
to be
I'd
there.
argue we already have AI with us wherever we go.
Sure.
How many people talk to their phone and say Siri or Alexa or Google, and give me information on this, and that's a form of AI, and to the point where it's like a lot of people don't even think about. I like I'll be talking with somebody and they'll turn and start a conversation with their Alexa, right? It's like, oh, that reminds me, Alexa, do this. As a matter of fact, I think the Alexa on my fridge just went off when I said
I was going to
that.
say, we are not responsible for anything that your devices are ordering online right now because of this conversation. Didn't South Park do that where they like
Yeah.
said all of the keywords and made everybody mad?
Alexa, make a donation to Aaron Chesney.
And they activated all of them. They were like, "Hey Google, Siri, Alexa,
Yeah,
all of the
right.
things." Right? Um,
I
yeah,
had it, and it's funny because I had one of those Google like mini pod things that was like on a table next to my couch, and there was a commercial for something like that, and they were using that, and it would turn on. I'm like, oh, geez, Pete, you know, it's like can't even watch TV without triggering stuff.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I do think it is scary for it's going to be hard for teachers to get kids. I mean, no matter what you do, yes, there are going to be things that AI can help us with, but you do need to be able to reason through your daily life and be able to think critically. And uh, with the crutch of AI involved in so much in their lives now, are they going to be able to you know build those muscles for them, right, as they're teaching these kids?
But there's other ways to work those muscles, right? So it's kind of like cursive now. It's many people don't even know how to write in cursive anymore, or read it for that matter, because it's just not used. It's become more of it's becoming antiquated, kind of like the newspaper or the magazine, right? It's those things are slowly being phased out. I think writing as a critical thinking tool is also going to end up going that route of being antiquated as an old way of proving that you know how to critically think. And it may be more of, you know, prompt creation or some other form of problem solving at a higher level to where, it's not about the basic math anymore. It's more about, you know, can you use the tool to get to the right answer?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, you think about like Google is a part of our lives these days, right? I mean, it wasn't when you and I were growing up, but like now it is, and some of those answers are just at your fingertips. So
Yep. And Googling is an official verb now.
yes, yes,
So it's, and I think those kind of changes are what's going to happen. It's we're going to see another change in technology, like the the landline to mobile, right? It's going to be more of a, why would I write that? I can write something and read it, make sure that my points that I wanted are being explained, and if not, then I'll adjust my prompt a little bit and go, boom, okay, yes, this is a good representation of my thoughts and where my thinking was, and now there it is. Um, and I think that's going to be more of the way we see things evolving. It's not going to be so much about the how, but the what,
I
right?
think that's fair. So of course, the big question in our industry is, are we all doomed? As software engineers, are we kind of a dinosaur now? Are we they're going to put us all out to pasture, and we're no longer going to have jobs? What do you think about that?
Um, so I think that AI is a power tool, and more to use an analogy that was given to me at a conference I was just at. That is it's a woodworking analogy, right? You can still create handcrafted carvings out of wood, right? You can pull out a chisel and a hammer and you can carve that stuff away and make a beautiful piece. Or I can use power tools like um, I can put the design into a CAD system and then dump that out to a CNC machine that will perfectly carve this design out into a piece of wood, and I'll actually get a more uniform and perfect piece. And some will argue that the handcrafted one with its small flaws is more valuable because of those imperfections. It's proof that it was handcrafted and not machine made. And there's some intrinsic value to that. And I think that um, we can do the same thing with coding with AI is we can create those two versions. You may have a handcrafted system. I don't think you're going to get value out of that because the things that pop up that show that it's handcrafted are defects and latency and things like that and some of those golden signals that we use to evaluate a system by are apparent in a handcrafted system and and we may even have those in AI, but they're going to be less likely because as a system learns, it's not going to make those mistakes and create code that will fall into those pitfalls. So I think what we're going to find is going to be more about how do I get the system to solve the problem that is that I have and plug that in as a power tool and then look at it with my craftsman's eye and say, is this well crafted? If it is, great, plug it in and move on to the next problem, right? Because we've been doing this for many decades now of generating code to solve problems, right? And we know how systems are supposed to come together and what they look like when they're done well. And we even go back to our own stuff sometimes as early as like a couple days. Like, you write some code on Friday, you come back on Monday and go, what the heck was I thinking here? Right. And I think that's going to be the same kind of thing that we'll find with AI generated code is that what's being done in version 4, when we get to version 5, it's going to be like, oh, yes, this is a much better thing. As languages evolve and be able to use different resources of our technical components, it's going to be another change, another role that we're going to have to go, yeah, okay, this is better. We need to replace that. And there's never a shortage of problems to fix. It's been a target rich environment for as long as we've been in the business, and I don't see that slowing down anytime soon. And so it's just going to be a matter of um, how well you use the tool to solve the problems.
Yeah, I think one interesting thing, like you kind of brought up, that the code is going to be writing, the AI is going to be generating better code than the issue there. One interesting aspect there is what they trained all these models, these foundational models that can do all this code generation. What we're talking about is, um, generative AI, right? So these foundational models are predicting the next token that they're supposed to be putting out. They used human written code to train these models. So I think about, like, with my kids, right? Like, there, it's a great lesson in life when you have children, and they do something and you're like, why on earth would they have done that? And then my wife's like, oh, they're just like you. Exactly. They make those same mistakes that we made because we trained them, we taught them whether we meant to or not, but we taught our kids. And the same thing's happening with AI is that, they're gobbling up all of this code that's been generated by human beings over time. So they're learning how to write code like human beings would, which is,
Right.
I think it's just kind of fascinating. I don't know. I thought that was an interesting aspect of it. We're already seeing like, I've been describing it as like the snake eating its own tail, right? So like, um, Stack Overflow was one place where they scraped Stack Overflow and said, oh, here's all the answers to all these questions that developers have had through all these years or whatever, which is great. And you can get answers from generative AI that way. However, new questions that are being asked are only being asked of the AI now. They're not going out to Stack Overflow, so it has nothing else to learn from. Stack Overflow, I wouldn't say it's dead necessarily, but it's kind of dead, right? Everybody's using the generative AI tools to find their answers and to get where they need to go when it comes to coding problems now.
Right. And I think that's where we're going to see the next evolution of AI is going to be self-learning. It's going to learn from the prompts and adjustments of the conversations it has with the user. So when it generates something and then you refine that with additional parameters, it's going to start to learn from that and go, oh, okay, I see how this changes in order to rectify this. And then that's like the next level. That's getting a little bit more self-aware because it's like, oh, okay, I'm having this conversation. I'm going to use that as part of my data set. Then it becomes kind of that recursive process of, okay, now I'm going to go back through. I'm learning from this conversation that I just had with a user. Well, then what if I start up my own conversation to try and, you know, find that, and that's kind of, it gets its own voice in its head, and that's kind of the way we think. We talk to ourselves, sometimes externally, internally. We're always kind of reprocessing things on a general flow. Like, how many times have you been, awake at night trying to think of a solution to a problem and running different iterations through your mind of like, oh, I could try this. Oh, but that has this issue, so I'll try this and that. But a computer can do that really fast with different iterations, right? That's
Yeah,
one
I
of
think
the.
that,
Go ahead.
and there's like the what is it, RLHF, reinforcement learning with human feedback, is one of the aspects of AI that people are using these days. But there's that human feedback loop there. Of course, the answer is reinforcement learning with AI feedback. But even when they do that, when they use the computer to give the feedback to the learning, that feedback loop for the learning, it's based on something that humans came up with. They usually have it's called constitutional AI, right? So you put together, here are the rules. Think about the Ed 209, right? You said you can't do this. Like, here are the prime objectives or whatever, right? So you have to put those, and it kind of evaluates itself based on, how am I complying with the prime objectives that I've been given, my constitution, if you will. But I don't know. As you were talking, I was thinking, have you ever seen the movie Multiplicity, I think it was called, with Michael
Yes.
Keaton?
Yeah. As you created more copies, it got dumber and dumber.
Yeah. By the end, the guy's like, "I got a wallet," and he's like shaving his tongue, and
Right.
yeah. So that maybe that's what will happen if we let AI teach itself. It's just going to create dumber and dumber versions of itself. Maybe that will happen. Hopefully, that's the case, and it's not, the Terminator robots coming back in time made of liquid metal like in Terminator 2. So we're not going to lose our jobs. You don't think, right?
No, I think our jobs will evolve, kind of, with the different career paths that have had technology impacts. Journalists and writers have become bloggers and vloggers and, that type of thing. I think it's just a paradigm shift in what the career will become. Um, it just like it has in previous iterations of technology shift. We don't use punch cards anymore. We don't write assembly directly down to devices. Um, Very rarely are we even writing embedded code uh, on the things unless it has to be, specific to a device. And usually that's just a USB transfer now anyways. It's just like, well, we write it over here and we just transfer it over there. But we're not like hard coding chips and that kind of thing. So it's those kind of evolutions I think are going to come about into our industry, and it's going to be more about eh, the the writing of better prompts and framing questions in a way that the computer can understand to get to the right answer. Um, to use the math analogy again, it's like, are you putting your parentheses in the right places? Are you dividing by the right, you know, denominator in that kind of thing? And are you plugging your variables into the right places? It was like, like a college physics course isn't necessarily about memorizing the formulas, but being able to plug the right values into the right places to get the right answer. Right. And I think that AI is kind of that tool. Where do I plug in my different pieces in order to get the correct generation of code um, in there? And and honestly, I think one of the spots that we will see that developers write less and less of will be testing. I think that QA in that kind of thing is the perfect type of thing for AI to leverage and say, take a look at this code and punch holes in it. Okay, I can do that. And, yeah, it's where is this code weak and test it. That I think that's the kind of thing that we're gonna see a big paradigm shift in because I personally love having a lot of tests around my code to make sure it's working. But in the same respect, I hate writing tests, right? So if I can have AI write tests that give me the satisfaction of having well covered code, that makes my job that much easier. And it's a good leverage of the technology to advance my career. Now I can produce work much faster. I'm like, okay, great. So now I'm going back and forth and maybe I don't need a team of 4 or 5 to 10 developers in order to generate an application or service out there in the cloud. I can have one or two, with Copilot, be able to produce the same amount of work. Right?
So one of the things that was interesting during the panel discussion I was in last week, somebody brought up we had a gentleman who was in cybersecurity, and they brought up some fascinating stuff around this especially around AI code generation. Is there are already people trying to pollute these foundational models with bad code, right? That would create vulnerabilities, right? So that's another thing we have to be very careful of is these code generators actually writing code that has vulnerabilities in there, and they already know they're going to be there because they're polluting the models, and then now they're going to go capitalize on this and take advantage of those vulnerabilities and steal money or people's identity or whatever the case may be. What do you think about that?
Well, and I think that with great power comes great responsibility, right? So you're gonna see, this is a dangerous tool as much as it is a helpful tool because with the right prompts, you could be like, okay, AI, go hack into the system, right? And if there's no guardrails around it, then it's going to go, oh yeah, here's a vulnerability that you can exploit with a JavaScript prompt, and um, or this site happens to be open to a DDoS attack. Um, it's just it it's one of those things where the components of of a bomb may be readily available, but it's the person assembling them in that fashion that makes it a dangerous thing. And I think AI is could be one of those components, right? It could be it it could be the bag of fertilizer that, if assembled the right way, turns into something really nasty. So we wanted to add a section to our podcast that we want to call Control Alt Delete, where we list a list of things, and we go through and we say these are things that we should keep, things that are maybe a good thing, and things that we should just get rid of completely. So with this, we're going to talk about AI tools and AI uses. We'll list out about five or so of these things, and then as we list them out, make a determination or our opinions on whether that should be something that we keep around, something that we keep an eye on, or something that we just get rid of completely. So I'll start things off. I've got one: AI song generation. So I started playing with a technology that will create songs from an AI prompt.
Man, I'm gonna feel like such a get off my lawn kind of person here. I don't know, man. I delete it, in my opinion.
I I don't see it as being like generating like pop hits, or something I'm gonna want to listen to like for hours and hours. But I think it's something to keep an eye on. So I'm gonna give it the alt. I think that there may be some possibility there.
Well, hold on now. You just reframed it so you could be, you could have your own kind of answer. You said, "What's my opinion?" I think delete it. That doesn't mean I don't think it'll still be around. I absolutely think
Yeah,
it'll have some legs and it'll be here. I think we should delete it. Right? We've got enough bad music out there. You know what I mean?
yeah.
We need
So
some good stuff.
that's why I say that's why my opinion is it's an alt. I think it's
You're
something
gonna go
that's
all
yeah. I'm gonna go alt.
okay.
Um, as mine.
All right.
So Uh, another one that's out there is, well, let's do the one that we've talked mostly about: AI code generation.
I think control for me on that one. I like it for now. I do think it's beneficial. It is helpful. I think it's great for me writing documentation, right? If or even like taking a bit of code, feeding it to the code generation and saying, or to a generative AI and saying, "Tell me what this code does," right? Helping me make sense of this. Like, I think that just using AI around software and code, I think is just a natural progression for us. And I'd say keep it for sure. Control.
I agree with you. I think this falls into that control category of it's a great tool for analysis. If when especially when you're looking at somebody else's code, it's like you can just throw it into AI and say, "Hey, what does this code do?" And it gives you a really nice explanation of the code and what it's doing. Um, It may not fill in all the gaps perfectly, but at least it's enough to where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I see the logic thread there, and you can move on.
Unless it hallucinates. And then,
Unless it hallucinates, but generally you can pick that out. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense at all.
right,
So, um, all right, so the next one is AI image generation.
like for
Like
artwork or just,
for our like there's a bunch of different ones out there. Like you can create an anime character based on a prompt, or some kind of like fantasy art, or an avatar. That kind of stuff is make me a picture, and you fill out your prompt of what you want to have in it, and it tries to do this and create an image for you.
yeah, I think I'm okay with that one. I'm going to go alt for me on this one. The problem with some of these things, and we've already seen it, is, and we didn't really talk about biases and kind of ethical and all of that sort of stuff when it comes to AI, but there's an inherent risk of biases, especially with when it comes to like image generation. Um, I don't know. I think I'd love to have, like, I tried to use it for the use case the other day, as I talked about earlier about, I'm do, going to be talking about a certain topic and I'd like an illustration for my slide. Can you put together an illustration and try? And I tried to do as much as I could to, like, here's what I want you to illustrate with this diagram, blah 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 blah. And I gave it a bunch of stuff, and it spit out something that was just horrendous. It was terrible. I would love for that to get better, and for that, for me to be able to use that, because one of the things, like, when I'm doing talks or presentations for clients, you have to do diagrams, and if it could spit out really good diagrams, I'd like that. So I'm gonna go alt.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I'm kind of between Alt and Delete on this one because a lot of times some of the images are really good and you're like, wow, that's really impressive. And other times, there's like an extra hand, that just pops up and it's like, what the heck is it thinking? It's like and
Yeah,
and you get these weird kind of things and it's just like, all right, or you get like the four eyes and like that's just creepy. So I think I'll go with alt on that because I think if you're doing some kind of like creative piece and you need an artwork, so maybe like a book cover or something like that, if you're or for like a presentation and you need like a certain type of graphic there, I think that might be a good way of generating that kind of stuff. All right. The next one would be AI generated writing. So this would be like essays or abstracts, any kind of like paper type writing.
so I guess, and for all of this, I would probably say I would probably need to have two different. The get off my lawn part of me says anything that's intended to be art, or enjoyed by human beings at that level, I'd say no, delete, see you later. Don't write me any songs. I don't want to hear any songs by a computer. Don't generate me any artwork. You're not going to be painting the Mona Lisa for me. I don't want to. That's not beneficial to me. Same with, like, writing. Don't write me a story. That level, bye. See you later, delete. I don't, none of that. However, I would say when it comes to, like, day to day usage, like, I definitely use it to, I'll have a piece of something that I've written and I'll say, hey, can you clean this up? Or maybe, rearrange the sentence, and use it like an editor for me, like an editorial editor, not like code editor, but like to do editorial for me. I'd say yes on that aspect of generating writings.
So
Control.
control for you. Yeah, I'm definitely in the control camp on this one. I actually have used it a couple times in the last week in playing with in kind of in understanding the tool set that's out there. In what AI can do. Um, I actually had it help me compose a song, right? It didn't give me, like the full song because I was using more of it as a guide. So, um, give me some lyrics that match this prompt. Um, Give me a chord progression that matches this. Change this verse to use this. Add a verse here, type of thing. And as a tool for crafting, in organizing a thought, it was really good. Um, some of the just generate me a song was like, it's a lot of trial and error. Like, generate it, listen to it, okay, adjust it and take it again. So yeah, I'm definitely in the control part of that. I think it's pretty cool for research and analysis type stuff, for presentations that are tend to be more dry material anyways. Um, I would say yeah, go for it. Let it go at that stuff. That's what it's going to be really good at is analyzing and presenting that kind of information, especially with like point support, 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 and conclude. So I think it's going to do a really good job at those kind of structured works. All right, the next thing on our list would be, will we see droids or androids? And should that be developed? So that'll be the control alt or delete. Should we move to developing bots?
Like, so what, with the distinction being full on, fully artificial robots versus
Star Wars,
androids that are helping.
Bicentennial Man, iRobot, I think Asimov, Lucas type type of sentient machines. Maybe let's not go Terminator style, but more.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This one's again, I'm a get off my lawn kind of guy, right? It's no. I think
Oh,
robots.
I'm definitely gonna argue with you on that one.
I think robots could be helpful
Yeah,
where they're helpful.
where's your
Yes.
Roomba at?
Shh, dude. Actually, all right. Here you go. Here's why I'm going to say delete because I just had to order two new cleaning head modules for my stupid Roombas because after 6 months they decided I don't want to work anymore. So yeah, delete those suckers. But I did order them, and I'll be putting them in, and I'll continue using them. So
Yeah, so
yeah, maybe alt.
I'm gonna call BS on the delete call on that one.
Yeah, maybe alt. Okay, all right, I'll
All
go
right,
alt.
all there you go.
No, I love my Roomba. I have two golden retrievers, and there's a lot of hair, so I love my Roombas. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think when they can be helpful. The problem though, what we see, and again, this is with anything, but we have to be prepared to counter all of the folks that are going to use this technology for evil,
Uh-huh.
for bad. I mean, if we can have a robot, somebody's going to say, "Hey, what would happen if we put a gun on that thing?" You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
there's always going to be that guy or that person to do that. Um, and I've seen too many of the movies, right? Like I I don't I don't want to have the Terminators, coming back to kill us. But I'll go alt then. Maybe you talk me into it because I do like my Roomba sometimes.
All right, so that's about all I have for the control alt delete list. So that was fun. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was
Uh,
fun. I do think when it comes to like entertainment, I really love watching those. What's it? Is it Robot Wars or whatever, where they make the robots and they put them in a little arena and they
Battle
beat
bots.
battle bots? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Where
Oh,
they
that's
they
fantastic.
beat the snot out of each other. Like
Yes.
that's fantastic. Yeah, I can get on board with that. But again, that's a slippery slope.
Yep.
Right now, they look like Roombas on steroids, but maybe they get bigger and taller and have a couple legs, and then they, then they're time traveling back in time to kill people.
There's a movie I just watched. I'm trying to remember what the name of the movie was, but it was about um robots that were boxing robots. So instead of like they kind of like did away with human boxing and Steve,
Steel.
it was
Hugh Jackman, yeah.
yeah, I think that was the one. Right. Yes. So thank you. That was the movie Steel, and it it got me thinking. It was like those kind of things. You don't have to feel bad about you know it's kind of um it's a different flavor of competition where there's no harm being done because anything on these machines can be replaced. And it's like, putting a couple bots in a ring to square off is it's kind of entertaining to see, which one's better, which and it becomes more about the look what I built. It's no different than auto racing in a sense that it's like, how do you take something that you've built and compare it to something that somebody else has built to see which one's better, you know? And that promotes advancement in different things.
Mhm.
Like I have watched a bunch of the battle bots and to see the evolution of the bots that used to dominate the field and how they just completely get destroyed now
Mhm.
um, is testament to that evolution of because of competition, they've pushed different boundaries and thought of different ways of making these things work.
Yeah, I mean they're solving extreme problems. The same thing was like auto racing, right?
Yep,
You think of the problems they're solving, high RPMs, high heat, all of those things that they're solving at that level, at the in the extremes. Those innovations can make their way down into more consumer based goods,
right.
which yeah, that's a way to spur innovation.
But yeah, I think that pretty much concludes this episode. I think we've talked about everything we wanted to talk about on AI, and with that, I will thank my beautiful co-host James Carman,
Redeemed myself.
in our voices from above, our producer and editor. And I am Aaron Chesney, and this has been the Forward Slash, where we lean into the future of IT. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next.